Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Dicebag again, and today I want to talk a little bit about Domain, my own card game I've been working on. Since world building is a major component of Domain, I thought it would be a good idea to narrate some videos about the lore. After all, there's not really a point to having lore if nobody even knows about it. So, I guess the best place to start is at the beginning. Or at least the closest thing we can call the beginning. This would be the Dawning Age. Now, the details of the Dawning Age are shrouded in myth and legend, but this much can be agreed on, that it began with the intersection of three different realms, those being the Abyss, where elements of matter and energy come from, Oblivion, where abstract laws and order exist in perpetual meaninglessness, and the heavens, where everything is ruled by symbolism and metaphor. When these three realms first touched each other, they mixed together and began to form what is now known as the Endless Seas, which is the main world of Domain. Now, the Endless Seas are called that for a pretty obvious reason. As far as anyone can tell, the ocean extends infinitely in all directions, and this ocean is dotted with continents and large islands that float around on top of the water. Well, technically, they float on top of the Abyss. See, given that the Abyss is a completely physical world, it connects to the Endless Seas in a physical way. The Abyss is quite literally an underworld. If you dig deep enough, you'll reach the Abyss. If you swim far enough down, you'll reach the Abyss. Now, the first beings from these outer realms to really take a major interest in the Endless Seas were the deities, the entities that rule the heavens. For a while, they dabbled in taking the rules and systems of the world and hammering them out into a coherent language, for lack of a better term. Eventually, they developed what they call the language of life, which we would just call DNA. And of course, they use this to create life in the form of plants and animals and fungi and all that. Unfortunately for them, there are other beings who had their eyes on the Endless Seas. The big players of Oblivion, called the Arbiters, didn't take kindly to the deities meddling with the laws they dropped into the world. And to top it off, even the Abyss had begun to spawn sentient beings, known as Primordials, and they didn't like the deities or the Arbiters messing with their stuff. Long story short, they had a big war. Going into much more detail than that would be kind of pointless and confusing, given that it was a war waged by beings who exist in various metaphysical states, but nonetheless, they found a way to fight, and they did. But eventually, all sides got tired of fighting, and they reached an agreement. That agreement was basically that each side would keep to their own worlds and only interact with the Endless Seas on a limited basis. Those last days of the Dawning Age were when the rise of the mortal races came about. You see, in order to fight their battles on the Endless Seas, the deities found a way to bind divine essence directly to the bodies of living creatures, thus creating the first souls. Once they achieved that, each deity came up with their own particular bodies to contain the souls, each of which was specifically crafted according to what the deity wanted to get out of them. This is where you get all the different mortal races that exist today. So let's talk about the mortal races to finish up. To start out, I decided on 5 different races for the first continent we'll be visiting. 4 of them are pretty standard fare for fantasy. Those would be humans, elves, dwarves, and orcs. And then the 5th one is kind of a tree folk race that I designed called the Trell, which is a portmanteau of tree and troll. Now, like I said, each race has their own creator deity that built them to certain specifications, but beyond that, those deities also command a pantheon of lesser gods who more directly inform the races on how to live their lives. Usually, these gods are actually mortals who gained favor with their deity in their mortal life and were transfigured after death and turned into fully divine beings. With this kind of governing method, each race tends to work towards a certain end goal that's common to all members of that race, because it's given by the creator deity. But different cultures and individuals, they'll take different paths to get to that goal, depending on, which god or gods they revere from their pantheon. Let's take the dwarves for example. One of the major commands from their creator is to accumulate wealth. Now the dwarves of the first continent are split into two major clans, who each have a different philosophy on how to get to that goal. The Gold Bottom clan goes about this through the use of heavily organized industry and exploitation. They always try to monopolize trade, they employ slave labor, especially of non-dwarves, and they do large-scale mining operations, things like that. Accumulating wealth in Gold Bottom society means working your way up the food chain until you're the top dog in any hierarchy. Then there's the Red Hill clan. These guys tend to get their wealth by becoming entrepreneurs or master craftsmen. You're likely to find them leading trade caravans or working in masonry or architecture and whatnot. They have loose associations of guilds that look out for their members, but it's mostly every man for himself. Anyway, I think I'll leave it at that for this lore video. That should be enough info for people to get the basic gist of the game's flavor and understand why certain things are the way they are. In future lore videos, I'll get more in-depth about specific things, but for now, I'll leave you with a flyover view of the cosmology and history. And by the way, Alpha Edition decks per domain are up for grabs on the GameCrafter website. I'll leave a link in the description for those. The art is a little over halfway done at this point, so the Alpha Editions still have a lot of playtest art on the cards. But as far as the rules and the game itself, those are already in their final forms. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.